All right, so with those notes that we just took, let's look at some examples together. So, number 1, use the diagram to the right to name the following. Part A, 4 collinear points. So again, this is why you might want to have your notes out. Remember, collinear points are points on the same line. If we look at our picture, we actually have 3 lines. Okay. Line, if we wanted to call this line R, is intersecting line P and line Q. Okay, so right now we are looking for 4 points that are all on the same line. So if we look at line P, there's 3 points on that. We got M, N, and O. Same thing for line Q. There's only 3. So they want us to have 4. So if I look at line R, which I did in green, we have 4 points, H, N, K, and I. So H, N, K, and I are 4 collinear points. All right, part B, a line that contains point M. So we need to find point M. There's point M, it's on the red line. And so they want to know the name of that line. And here's what sometimes people struggle with. There are multiple correct answers for this. Okay, if we were going to use the lowercase cursive letter at the end, we would say, oh, line P, and we would use the word. And again, try to make the little p look somewhat cursive. Now, some people don't like to use the little letters at the end. So some people like to use the points. So remember, if you're going to use points, you need 2 and only 2, and you use the symbol. So someone else might have said, well, I called that line MN. Perfect. Okay. That's the same line, you just named it different. You could have called it line MO. Again, you can use any points on the line. Only 2, but any of them. We could also could have called it line NO. You could reverse that and call it line ON. We could have called it line MO. So sometimes people struggle with that because there are multiple ways to correctly name things. So if you're ever not sure, just ask Miss Witcher or myself, because there are more than one right answer on many of these problems. All right, C, a line that contains points H and K. So again, we got to find point H and point K. And when I find them, I notice that K actually is on the green line, line R, and the blue line, which is line Q, which is okay. That's the point of intersection for those 2 lines, so that will happen. But line H is only on the green line. So if I want a line that has both of them, I have to use the green line and say, again, you can either do line R, okay, and again, it's supposed to be cursive, but I'll just make a little squiggly. Okay, you could call it line R. Again, someone else might have said, well, I called it line HK. That's fine too. Line NK, line KN, okay, line KH. So again, you only need to put one answer. Okay, I just want you guys to be aware that there are multiple correct answers. Letter D, another name for line Q. Okay, line Q is my blue line. And so you can't call it line Q because they've already used that name. So they want a different name that still represents that line. So again, I'd have to go to the points. You only use 2 points. So I could call it line JK. Or I could call it, and again, you don't have to write all of these. I'm just showing you that there are more than just one option. I could say line KL, okay? Or I could say line JL. Or you can reverse the letters. You could say line LJ. Just as long as you're using 2 points and your symbol. And then point E, the intersections of lines P and R. So line P is red, line R is green. Where do they intersect? They intersect right at point N. And so remember, we write out the word point and just say N. All right, let's look at number 2. Again, use the diagram to the right to name the following. A line containing point F. So again, some people like to color code. You don't have to. But there's point F. There's the line it's on. Okay. Again, different ways to name it. You see the little J right off the end of it. You could call it line J. Again, that's supposed to be cursive, so we'll give it a little squiggle. Give it a little flourish. You could use 2 points. So you could use D, E, or F. Again, only 2 letters. Use your symbol. So let's say you wanted to call it DE. That would be fine. Okay, EF, DF. Okay, you could reverse that, FD. So again, more than one right answer. Another name for line K. Okay, if I look at my picture, I gotta find line K. So K is right there. So they're telling you it's this line, and it's actually almost like piercing your plane. Okay, so if you want to think of like a pencil going through your paper, there's line K. So they want another line name for that. So if I look on there, of course I can't call it line K again. We got point B, E, and C. So you can use any 2 of those points. So I could say, I'm just going back to green. Line, use your symbol, BE. Again, they only want 1, so you don't have to write all of them. You could say BE, BC, EC. Okay, again, you can reverse that, CE, CB. So lots of different correct answers here. A plane containing point A. So now they want us to look at the flat surface, this right here. Okay, and they want us to name the plane, and when they say contains, they mean that it's technically in the box, okay, in that plane box. And sometimes they'll say a plane, a point on. But when they say containing, it just means is it inside the picture representation of our plane. So remember, to name a plane, you use 3 non-collinear points or a capital cursive letter, which is usually in one of the corners. So if you look at that plane, the capital cursive letters down there in the right-hand corner, we could call this plane M. Yep, it's supposed to be cursive. Squiggle. Okay, there we go. That's one correct answer. We could also use 3 of the points. Now, the only thing you have to be careful of is you don't want to call it plane DEF. The reason we don't want to call it plane DEF is because they are collinear. And to name a plane, we need to use 3 non-collinear. So that means one of your points needs to be A. That's all that means. Okay, so if you want to use the 3 points, again, you can use the word or the symbol. Same thing with the M. But you got it. One of the points has to be A because A is not on a line with D, E, or F. So I'm just going to say plane ADE. And again, when you're naming something, no commas. Okay, when you write your name, there's no commas in your name, so don't put commas here when we're writing names. Now, is that the only way we could have said that? No. You could have said AEF. You could have said FAD. Okay, as long as the points are non-collinear. All right, an example of 3 non-collinear points. Well, I just said some. We just talked about that. 3 non-collinear points, okay, could be points A, D, and E. Okay, we've already established they are not on the same line. But there's other points you could use there. You could say points D, E, and B, because B's it's like above D and E. You could say points C, B, and A. Okay, as long as they're not on the same line. The only thing you couldn't say is D, E, and F or B, E, and C. So let's pick one. Let's say, and again, don't use the lowercase cursive J. Don't use the capital cursive M. Those are not points. If it's cursive, they are not representing a point. So I'm going to go with points B, D, and A. And again, I am putting commas because I'm not naming a shape. I'm just listing out some points. And E, the intersection of plane M, so plane M is my blue parallelogram, and line K, which is my red line. So where do they cross? Where do they meet? Well, if you look at your line K, which I have as in red, it actually goes through your plane or intersects your plane right here. Okay, that's where it would be going through. Think of it as your piece of paper. That's where your pencil point would be going through your paper. And that would be point E. All right, so let's look at number 3. Name 3 coplanar points. That means points on the same plane. Now, with this, if you look, you've got a pyramid that looks like it's sitting on top of your plane. Okay, so there's actually lots of planes because a plane is a flat surface. So you have that flat surface that's easy to see. Okay, it looks like a rectangle, this one right here. That would be one plane. But then on your pyramid, because that's actually a 3-dimensional figure, each side of it would be a plane. Okay, in other words, this right here, this side of my pyramid, that's considered a plane. Even though it doesn't have the rectangular shape, it's still a flat surface. Same thing with this side right back here. Oh, already used blue. Let's pick a different color. Green. All right. This side of your pyramid would also be considered a plane. So any flat surface is considered a different plane. So 3 coplanar points. There's lots of right answers right here. I'm just going to use what I colored in red. Okay, that side of my pyramid. And so that would be point Z. Okay, this side comes down Z, V, and W. Now, is that the only options you have? No. And that's why we strongly recommend if you don't have an answer that someone gives or an answer that we give, just raise your hand, let us know, check it with us, because odds are it's probably right. You were just looking at a different part of your diagram. And I'm not going to list all of them because there's too many right here to keep on listing. So, a plane containing point X. Okay, so we have to find point X. And if we look, point X is back here. And hopefully you guys notice that point X is on the green side of that pyramid, what I colored green. But it is also on the flat surface that I traced in blue. Okay, so you actually have 2 planes that you could go with there. I'm going to use the green side of my pyramid that I traced. And so again, this is a flat surface. It would be considered a plane. So that would be this right here. And to name a plane, you need 3 non-coplanar points. Sorry, non-collinear, not coplanar, non-collinear. So I'm going to call this plane. Z is my first point, W is my second point, and X is actually my third point. Now again, that is not the only correct answer. So if you got something different, just check it with us. C, the intersection of plane R. Okay, so plane R is the blue, what I went around and did in blue, and plane ZVY. So now I got to find plane ZVY. Okay, and sometimes it's a little hard because if you are not a visual person, okay, it may be hard for you to imagine what's going on, especially if look at this plane here. Plane ZVY would be this side that you can't really see. It would be this right there. And that's a little challenging to see. That's a little challenging to see, for sure. So they want to know the intersection. Again, where do they meet? Where do they touch? Where do they cross? If you go back to your notes at the very bottom, there was a little note that said when you have two planes that intersect, it forms a line. So what you're looking for is what do they have in common. So if I look at my blue plane, plane R, and I look at my purple plane, plane ZVY, what I notice is where they come together at is, let's try to pick a, I'm running out of colors here that'll look good. Let's try this obnoxious green. Where they meet or where they come together is this piece right here. Okay, it's on plane R and it's also part of your plane ZVY, or that side of the pyramid. And remember, the note said it's a line, so we're gonna, oh, you guys can't see that. Let me use a different color to write. We're gonna call it, well, no, I'll leave it color coded because I don't want to confuse anybody. Line VY. Question D, how many planes appear in the figure? Again, gets a little bit more challenging. Okay. So if you're not a visual person, but the flat surface would be considered one plane. And then you have the front of your pyramid, so that's 2. The 2 sides of your pyramid, so that would be 3 and 4. And then the back part of the pyramid that you really can't see that well, so that would be 5. Okay, so that's a little tougher, especially, again, if you're not a visual person. And letter E, how many planes contain point W? So how many planes have W in it, or how many planes do you see W is in? So first of all, let's find point W. Again, let's change color. Let's go with kind of like a navy. Oh, no, green's not going to work there too well, is it? How about a pink? Okay, so here's point W. And point W is actually this bottom point of your pyramid. So hopefully what you recognize is point W is part of this side right here. So that would be one plane. It's also part of this right here. It's the bottom corner of that. So that would be 2 planes. And here's the one people miss a lot. It's actually on this blue plane too. Okay. So that is 3. All right, last little picture here. 4 more, hang tight. All right, again, use the diagram to name the following. So A, the intersections of lines L and M. So from our notes, down towards the bottom, when 2 lines intersect, they intersect in a point. So we're looking for a point. So here's line L. And just so you know, the dotted part of the line is the part that technically you wouldn't see because it's behind the plane / piece of paper. Okay, if you want to kind of think about it as a piece of paper. And then line M, again, sometimes color coding is your friend. A little hard to do with a stylus sometimes, though. All right, so again, from our notes, we know when 2 lines intersect, they intersect at a point. Okay, so where do those 2 lines intersect? If you look right here, try to make it a little bigger. So that would be point E. All right, part B, another name for Q. So we got to find plane Q. And so I look and I go, oh, here's plane Q. It's this plane here. So they want us to rename it. Again, we can use a cursive capital letter, which they already did, or 3 non-collinear points. Very careful, they have to be non-collinear. So I look inside my plane, I got points F, E, G, and I. Remember, you can't count M as a point because that's a cursive letter. That is not a point. That is just a cursive letter to name that line. So they have to be non-collinear. So as long as I write 3 points, one of them has to be an I, because I is hanging out over there by itself. So as long as you use other 2 points, you're good to go. So we can say, and again, you can use the symbol or the word. I've just normally always used the word for plane, but you can draw a little plane as a symbol. So plane, again, as long as I is one of your letters. So I'm just going to go on F and E. Now again, for this particular question, quite a few different correct answers. So if that's not what you saw, just check it with us. All right. C, are points D and E collinear or coplanar? So here comes those vocab words. So remember, collinear means on the same line. Coplanar means on the same plane. So we got to find points D and E and figure out, are they on the same line or are they on the same plane? So here's point D. And here's point E. Okay. So are they collinear? That would be a yes, right? They're on line L, the blue line. Are they coplanar? Are they on the same plane, which are your boxes? That would be a no. Okay. Point D is on plane P and point E is on plane Q. So they're collinear. I already checked it off, but let's write it down. And last but not least, how many times do planes P and Q intersect? So they want to know, how many times do you see plane P intersecting with plane Q? Okay, that would be none, right? Okay. They're actually running parallel. Okay. If you look, it's like if you would hold 2 pieces of paper right next to each other. Okay, they're not intersecting. They're side by side. So thank you for watching. Now we're going to turn you loose on your own practice. As you go through it, if you have any questions, just let one of us know. We will be glad to help.